do it.
Well, at least it's thinking about doing it.
It says it's streaming on my end.
All right, there we go. All right, so welcome everybody. We are here for happy hour with Angela Thompson. She is I'll let her kind of introduce herself a little bit, but I'll give you just a little info about how I met her. I think I was at some networking function, and she gave a presentation at that event. And the way that she spoke and the things that she was talking about, I just was like, oh my gosh, I feel connected to her, and I feel like you guys would feel that way as well. So I asked her to come in, and she was more than excited to come in and chat with us all tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Ange here and let her get started with a brief introduction about herself, and then she's just going to jump into this awesome presentation that she has going on.
Yeah.
So it's all you now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I felt connected with you too. I think we met on some mom meetups as well, which was fun. And we've had a bunch of chances to talk. So I do preface, sometimes swears come out, so I apologize in advance if that happens. It happens frequently, but that is just kind of who I am and the way that I show up in the world. So full disclosure, that may happen. I also have my lovely happy hour drink ready to go. So I will give you guys a little bit of info about me. I'm Ange. I'm a lifestyle and empowerment coach for women. I help them go from victim to victor in their lives, and we do that by creating a buildable, sustainable self-care practice that helps them learn how to put themselves first, minus the guilt. So when Brittany and I were talking about me coming on tonight, guilt was something that I think pretty much every woman, I mean, really, that's just the audience that I feel like we're speaking to, but I think people in general, especially women, suffer from this burden of guilt, and we carry it around really heavily, especially when we have kids. And then as we move through our lives, guilt can play a really big role. If we don't address it, if we don't talk about it, it continues to keep us stuck. It continues to show up over and over again. And so my presentation is just going to be a brief overview of a masterclass that I'm teaching at the end of April on the 25th. And that is called Mom Guilt, Letting It Go So You Can Move On. And basically, we're going to talk about what guilt is, how it shows up in our lives, how it keeps us stuck, and then what we can do right now in this moment to help ourselves start to move on. I don't know about you, but guilt has reared its ugly head up in my life a lot throughout the years. And then I would say really magnified itself after I had my son. And now in the relationship that I'm in, I have a stepson as well. And I think that everything that we do in our lives, right, we carry around our own thoughts and feelings. And then once we become responsible for these other humans, now we're carrying around their thoughts and feelings too. So guilt really can play a big role. And I want to talk a little bit about what it is. So guilt is aversive. It's like shame, embarrassment, or pride. It has been described as a self-conscious emotion, and it often involves reflection of oneself. It can be associated with failure. It can be associated with compromised morals if you're put in a situation where you feel your own morals are compromised. It shows up big time when we start claiming responsibility for the thoughts and actions and feelings of others. And I'll touch on that in just a moment. And it tends to be caused by either action or our inaction, right? So it's that damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, we feel bad for doing the thing, but then we feel bad if we don't do the thing. So either way, we're disappointing someone or ourselves, no matter what we do, which is fantastic. Is a fantastic way to go through life. So really the big deal is how guilt shows up, right? So we know that it's a thing, we know that it exists. it happens. So how it shows up in your life could be any number of a million things. It could be always saying yes when you want to say no. That happens a lot, especially as women. We are, in the office. It's, can you take on this extra project? Can you stay late? Can you come early? Do you have to leave to go to your son's soccer practice? To your kids, it's, mommy, can you spend time with me? Can we go? Can I have the candy? Then your spouse or your partner wants a piece of you. And it's like all of these things, right? When we just want a second to just say no, like, I need a minute, give me a minute. It could be habitually putting yourself last. As women, we frequently put ourselves last. We always are like, okay, well, if the kids and the dog and the house and the job and the spouse and the partner and the chauffeuring and now the distance learning teaching and the, all of those things, as long as those things are all taken care of, maybe, just maybe, I'll have some time for myself. And I can almost guarantee that we don't give that time to ourselves at all. It could be playing small, not showing up for your dreams. It could be, I like to call it toxic independence. Toxic independence is another one of those things that as women, this, I think, has really been ingrained in us and conditioned by society, in that we don't need help, shouldn't need help, everything is fine, like, we got this, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine. I got this, I'm fine, right? Well, we know we're not fine. We have 892 things on our to-do list. We've got 3 hours to get it done, and we're like, what the hell? Like, how the hell am I going to do all of this and still show up for everybody in the way that I need to show up? It could show up in the way of needing permission or defending spending your money. The grass is greener complex has shown up. She's got this spouse, she's got the house, she's got the career, she's got the kids that are in lacrosse and they're straight A students and they're in the, like, we're always comparing ourselves. And I think that social media has really, really heightened that level of comparison, and grass is greener. And guilt also can have a lot of physical manifestations, right? It can keep you up at night. So insomnia, anxiety can be attached to it, nausea, headaches, tension, things like that. When we are carrying around really, really heavy emotions and are burdened by those things, they often manifest themselves in our bodies. So it can affect you in a number of ways. So those are some of the ways that guilt is going to show up in your life. I know for a fact, when I was in my corporate job, being gone 60 plus hours a week, I constantly felt like I was failing. I felt like I was failing my son because I wasn't the one to get him ready for school. Well, let's go back and pretend that going to school was a thing. Wasn't the one getting him ready for school, or picking him up from school, or feeding him dinner, or doing his homework, or frankly, giving him a shower. And sometimes I wasn't even home to put him to bed at night. So there were days where I would leave for work in the morning and it would be 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. My kid's already sleeping. So I'm guilty because I'm a terrible mom. But if I don't work, then how am I gonna pay for all of our stuff? I am constantly fearing people judging me, or rejecting me, or talking shit about me, feeling like, well, she does this or she doesn't do that, right? We always fear those things. And that is one of the big ways I want to talk about how fear holds you back. How guilt holds you back. Paralyzing fear is a big deal. We fear the failure, we fear rejection, we fear judgment from others, especially as women. We can be very judgmental of each other. I happen to pride myself in being part of a group of women that is very, very supportive and really believes in community over competition, but it's not always like that, right? I think that society has sort of trained us to like, well, you can't succeed if she succeeds. There's not enough for all of you. If she's got customers, then you don't have customers. So we're always sort of pitted against each other rather than finding ways to build each other up and work together. Another way it holds us back is keeping us connected to our old stories. This is a big deal for me. I use this example when I'm coaching my clients. And to me, it really means taking on responsibility for other people's thoughts, feelings, and actions. So I use this analogy that You're going on a trip and you and your family pack up and you head to the airport and you get into the airport and you're stressed out as shit like we always are when we're traveling. We're always in a hurry. We're always late. The kids got to pee. There's a million things going on. I'm dragging 622 bags, trying to find my tickets. Like, God damn it. Okay. I'm stressed. I got a lot of shit going on. Right. So, given all of that, are you going to walk by a stranger's bag and pick up their bag? Are you going to start just collecting things as you're moving through the airport just to make it easier on someone else? Right? That's how guilt keeps us connected to our old story. We have enough baggage and enough shit of our own that we have to deal with on a regular basis. We don't need to start collecting and picking up other people's shit. We really don't. Take responsibility, own what's yours, right? We all make mistakes. Life is messy and that's okay. But own what's yours and give away what isn't, because you are not doing anything to serve yourself going on through life, continuing to collect stuff that doesn't belong to you. Does that make sense? Are you following where I'm going with that? Okay, cool. And the last of the 3 ways that guilt holds you back is comparison. And this is another thing that has become a really big deal for us as women. I'm going to focus a little bit on the comparison piece tonight because we don't have a ton of time, and my master class will go into detail about all of those things. But I want to focus on comparison tonight because this particular one holds a special place in my mom heart. We constantly are looking outside of ourselves at the things that we don't have. And that's a really difficult space to live and be in, right? Like I was saying before, that grass is greener complex. Well, she's got that partner, or look at their house, or look at the place that they live, or the car that they drive, or the clothes that they wear. Like, we're constantly looking outwards, like, she's got all of that. Well, I don't have that. How come I don't have that? Is it because I don't deserve it? Is it because I don't try hard enough? Is it because whatever the reason, we tell ourselves, and we'll create a story, right? If there's no story to be had, we'll make a story, because we're always in our heads. We're always thinking about, like, well, how and why, and there's no way, like, it could just be. Well, yeah, it could just be. That's her partner, and you have yours, or you don't, and you are happy alone, and or you are, you know what I mean? Like, we all have our own wonderful, beautiful lives. And if we can learn to separate that and pull it apart from each other, it stops sucking the joy out of it. So I love this beautiful quote that comparison is the thief of joy. Theodore Roosevelt said that. So looking outside of you and constantly wanting what you think you don't have is a really, really great way to never live in a space of gratitude. Gratitude is incredibly important. Gratitude is it's a practice, it's a feeling. It is what will allow the universe to draw more of the things that you want and desire to you, rather than repel them and push them away. Comparison also diminishes and invalidates our feelings about things. This is another big one that clients come to me with, and it's like, well, Angela, I heard about this lady and she has it so much worse than I do. Her situation was so much worse than mine. She lost everything. She was in a situation of abuse. She has no money. She has none of those things, right? And so I shouldn't feel bad about what I'm going through. So many people have it harder than I do. The COVID pandemic is a really great example of that, where there are so many people that suffer, so many people. And that's a reality. Okay, like, we're not glossing over it, pretending like it didn't happen. But just because there are those people that are hurting, just because there are those people that are experiencing these sometimes really horrible, traumatic things, does that really diminish or invalidate whatever feelings about your life or situations may happen? No, right? You just being you gives you the right to feel whatever you feel about whatever happens to you. If you lose a loved one, that is that's a horrible, horrible tragedy. Should you stuff it down and pretend like it's okay because your neighbor next door lost 5 members of their family? Does it make it any less real that you lost someone that you love? Nope, sure doesn't. And then on the flip side of that, well, there's always people have it so much better than me. Is it because I'm unlucky? Is it because God hates me? Is it because, like, stop it. Don't play the victim card. Yes, that can be very triggering, but stop. Okay. Bad things don't happen to you because God hates you, or because you're unlucky, or because he likes your neighbor next door better than he likes you. That's not how that works. And if we continue to live in that space, you're going to collect more of that shit, right? So the energy that you put out, you're going to keep getting back. And so if it's constantly looking outside yourself at the things that you have or don't have, or wanting and desiring the things that somebody else has and you don't believe are possible for your life, you're going to stay right where you're at, and you're going to continue to get more of the garbage. So take that for what it is. Okay. Also, I would say that guilt detracts you from being present. So as I was saying about living in a space of gratitude, when you're constantly feeling guilty about whatever it is, right? You're not showing up how you want to, or you believe that others perceive you in a certain way. You're failing, you're disappointing people, you didn't stay late enough at the office, whatever it is. It really detracts from your ability to be present and enjoy the things that are happening in your life and around you that you really do have to be grateful for. There are things in all of our lives, even people that have really horrible, traumatic, terrible situations happen to them. All of us have things that we can be grateful for. And that's the space that we're striving to get to. And we don't want to perpetuate the negative thought patterns. The more we think about it, the more it manifests, the more, like, it's the snowball, right? Like the more we think, it just adds a little bit more as it starts to roll downhill. And so we either stop it, right? We figure out a way to stop it, or we start to change those negative thoughts into positive thoughts, so that that's the snowball we create. Another really big piece of comparison is the to work or not work. That is a huge thing for moms, right? We are guilty if we go back to work after we have a baby. We are guilty if we don't go to work. How could you possibly stay at home? You must have it so easy. Somebody takes care of you. Oh, well, you have a job. You don't give a shit about your baby. Okay, cool. Why don't you just go ahead and go to work, right? Somebody's always judging us. Always. People will always judge you until you succeed, and then they want what you have. So we spend so much time worrying ourselves about what other people think about us. And quite frankly, it's none of our business. What other people think of you is none of your business. And people don't think about you as often as you think they do. And that one hurt my feelings for a little bit. I was like, what do you mean? Like, people are obsessed with me. What are you talking about? I know they think about me all the time. Girl, no, they don't. They don't. Because they're too busy being in their heads, guilty about whatever shit they feel like they're failing at or disappointing people at or whatever it is. Like, we all have our own stuff, and they're not thinking about you as much as you think they are. So I want to end how that shows up in our lives and how it holds us back a little bit, because I do want to talk just really quickly about a few things that you can do right now to start letting go of some of that guilt and really moving on. I'm going to talk about 2 real quick things because I'm going to save the rest for my class. But journaling. So if you're really looking for something that you can do for yourself to start letting go of some of those thoughts and feelings, it's real simple. It's real easy. Journal, brain dump, whatever you want to call it. Okay. You can give me a million excuses, a million reasons why you don't have time, or you can't, or you don't like writing, or whatever it is. Stop it. I don't buy it. I don't want to hear it. You have time, right? Stop scrolling through Instagram. I can guarantee if you gave yourself 5 minutes of the time that you spend scrolling through Instagram, you could spend 5 minutes journaling. Well, I don't have a journal, and I don't, well, spend 75 cents. Go buy a spiral notebook, right? And start journaling. And you're not looking to like impress anyone. You're not putting any limitations on it. There's no parameters. There's no expectations. Write whatever comes to your mind, and just get it out. Because a lot of times it's just about us like thinking through things or talking through things with ourselves in order to be able to start the process. So I tell people that a lot. Please don't give me your excuses about why you don't have 5 minutes. You do. You make time for the things that you want to make time for, and for everything else, you make an excuse. So the next practice that I want to talk about is asking for help. So as women, we tend to not ask for help. We worry that we burden other people. We tend to make ourselves smaller or pretend that our problems are less significant than someone else's. Again, that she has it worse than I do sort of complex. Or that toxic independence. I got this. I don't need help. I can do all the drop-offs. I can do the cooking. I can do the job. I can do the kids. I can do all of this shit. Stop it. Because you don't have to, right? And that's the reality, is all of the things that happen in our lives are choices. So ask for help, hire a coach. Don't go on your journey alone. Get an accountability partner, find a friend, find another mom that is feeling the same way that you are, because just because you guys don't talk about it doesn't mean that there aren't other people that feel the exact same way that you do. And the more that we share it, the more that we talk about it, the more normal it becomes, the more we're able to learn from each other and learn from each other's experiences. And even if it's nothing more than like, Brittany, I need to have a drink, girl. I need to talk some shit about my day because it was stupid. And I just like, if I can just have 5 minutes and get it out, then I'll feel a lot better. And you're like, cool, dude, no problem. Like, I got you. It's fine. If you want advice, I can do that. If you want me to just be a listening ear, cool, I got you. If you want to sit in silence, done. Whatever you need. But don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, if you have a friend, a girlfriend that you can trust, then ask her for what you need. There's this fear around asking for what we need, and it's crazy to me. We have this weird expectation that people will just read our minds. You know, mostly our partners and stuff, we just figure that they like totally know what we're thinking at all times. But if you ask for it, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get it. So don't go on your journey alone, hire someone. And that is my advice to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say this, there's a bit of a lag on Facebook. So I'm going to say this before I start asking questions. If anybody on Facebook is watching, have comments or questions for Ange, feel free to drop them in the comments. I am following the thread so I can make sure to ask your questions live as well. So yeah, I did have a couple of questions. I was like madly taking notes while you were talking. And I just gotta say that the analogy, the airport analogy, I was like, oh my God, yeah, that makes so much sense.
Is that crazy?
At first I was like, where is she going with this? And then when you started talking about like picking up other people's bags, I'm like, oh yeah, I got that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I missed, can you just quickly like give a brief rundown of the 3 things? Like, I feel like I got fear and comparison, but I think I missed what number 2 was.
Yeah. So the 3 ways that it holds you back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the third one is keeps you connected to your old story.
Okay.
You could also call that feeling stuck, or that's where I use that analogy of the airport taking responsibility for other people's actions.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. So one question I had when you were talking about journaling. So when I was a kid, I used to journal a lot. Like I have like old journals from when I was like 12, like shoved in my closet that are really funny to like open up and read sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got older, like into adulthood, I started blogging. And that kind of took over the journaling.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it so much anymore, but I'm curious if like there's a difference in your mind between like like handwritten journaling versus like typing it out, or even just like talk to text? Like, is it just a matter of like getting it out of your head onto something else? Or is there psychologically like a difference between like physically doing it versus whatever?
I'm sure there's some sort of scientific psychological connection between putting pen to paper. I think that it just depends on how we learn, right? Like I'm a tactile learner. If I can journal pen to paper, I prefer it that way because to me, that's more real. But there are a lot of times when I have so much happening in my brain, like so much to say, I know that my hand is not going to keep up. And so I'll just type it out, or I'll leave a voice note or do something where I know that like I can get the thoughts out faster than I would be able to write them. Um, you don't always have to be able to revisit it. So it doesn't have to be on a piece of paper or a typed note. But sometimes it is nice to go back. Sometimes when I'm going through something really ugly or really, really difficult, once I sort of process it and get my way to the other side, I'll take my pages outside and I'll burn them. And just I use it as like sort of a symbolic like release. Okay, we're done with this. I'm not holding on to it anymore. We're done. It's over. And sometimes you just say it into your phone and you get it out and you're like, okay, well, the world doesn't need to hear that. So we're going to go ahead and delete it. We don't want that to go into the ears of anybody else. So just delete now.
Yeah.
But I think however works for you. Like if you like to write, write. If you type, cool. Like if you blog, cool. I would challenge that that's not necessarily journaling in the sense that like sometimes when I journal, I'm like, F that, worst day ever. No, like it's literally just like series of thoughts and not really like, full things put together beautifully to be able to like be given to another person. It's just whatever's happening in my brain. So that's how I would say like distinguish between the two things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was gonna say I can definitely see a lot more of course I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but like burning your pages feels a lot more symbolic to me than like hitting delete. So
yeah, yes. It's also who doesn't like fire? So it's way more enjoyable, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a question from Carla on Facebook. She says, how can you lean on your friends for a listening ear without it getting to a level of feeling like you're burdening them? Any tips on how to keep the balance?
Yes. So I would, first of all, I'm going to ask a question to your question. Are we having the same talk about the same subject over and over and over again, in the sense that like, are you going to Brittany and saying, well, that same thing happened again, and I know we've been talking about it for 3 years, but I'm still here and we're still doing it. So like that, at that point, like your friend is doing you a disservice by not saying girl shit or get off the pot. Okay. But if you really have a girlfriend that you can trust, I would say this: go into the conversation saying, hey, I have something that I really need to talk about. It's super, like, for whatever reason, it's really bothering me. I don't want to burden you. I just need to get these feelings out. Would you be open to listening to me talk about it? And just be honest, because if you're looking for feedback, say that, hey, I've got something that's important to me. I know you've got a lot going on. I really need to get this out. It's important to me for my healing or my processing. And I'm hoping that you would be willing to give me some advice. Acknowledge that the other person has stuff, that's fine. But we're not saying, I know you're busy, but no, we're not, because we're not apologizing for having our feelings. Hey, Brittany, I'm really struggling with this. Do you think you have a few minutes to listen to what I have to say? And if you wouldn't mind, could you please give me some advice? I'm not going to apologize for struggling or for needing help, but I will acknowledge, I know you're busy. And so if or when you had time, do you think you could be available for me?
All right. She loved that. There's little heart things flying off of that.
Yes, Carla. Yes.
All right. Let's see. Let me take a quick look here at what I have. I loved your comments about the stay-at-home versus working mom guilt, because I've been on both sides of that coin. And yeah, it sucks on either side. Let's see. Is there, you opened talking a little bit about like the definition of guilt, and you talked about like shame involved in that. Is there a difference between shame and guilt?
I think that they're attached, but I think that they're two different things. They often go hand in hand, but aren't necessarily the same thing. Shame is when we don't want to share something, right? Like, let's say that we had an experience happen to us. It wasn't our fault, but we still feel guilty about it. And then there's like weird shame and stigma that goes with talking about it. And so the guilt can come from self. It can also come from external factors or forces. So they're often connected, but not quite the same thing.
Awesome. All right, so I'm putting out a last call for questions. Anybody on Zoom, anybody on Facebook? There is a bit of a lag on Facebook, so I'll give it a second here. But yeah, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Or if anyone on Zoom has a question, you can unmute and feel free to ask. Let's see, while I'm waiting on the Facebook.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it. Bye.
Do you journal? I have two questions. Do you journal every day? And can you tell us more about your master class?
Yes. No. Well, let's answer the questions in the order they were asked. No and yes. I don't journal every day. I find myself, even as the, this is a great example of like where I could show up and feel guilty because I'm a coach who tells people to journal, but I don't journal every single day. Like, I don't. I'll go through phases where I'm amazing for a month and I'll journal in the morning for 5 minutes and I'll journal for 5 minutes before I go to bed. And then, here's when my uncle passed away in February, I haven't written a whole lot since then, which is funny. You would think that I would journal through some of that, but my feelings and my pain and the things that I have been dealing with associated with his death, I haven't felt ready to write about yet. So I stopped writing. And I'm just now, he passed away in the first week of February, and I'm just now feeling like I'm ready to start releasing some of that. So it goes through phases. It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be every day, but challenge yourself. If you do it 0 times, try 2 or 3. Don't make it feel burdensome or crazy. And literally it could be 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be some crazy, like long-winded essay. It's fine. Yes. Second question, my masterclass. So my masterclass is basically the extended in-depth version of this topic, where we are going to explore very thoroughly all of the ways that guilt shows up in our lives. We're going to explore very, very thoroughly how it holds us back. There were 2, I talked about comparison, but the paralyzing fear and the attachment to old stories, I really didn't get into. And then the latter part of the class will be about what we can do to put into practice right now to help us move on. So there's a lot more in-depth stuff that will come. It is 90 minutes on Sunday, April 25th from 7 to 8:30. I have a link that I can put in the comments when we're all done to the class itself. And I would love to explore this. I feel like this is something that as women, we all, at some point in our life have to work through. And I love sharing. So I'm excited.
All right, awesome. So in addition to your masterclass, where else can people find you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find me is on Instagram. You can find links to my website, my coaching. You can book a free call with me. I am available for free morning routine calls. So a lot of putting ourselves first is learning how to properly do a morning routine. Or if you have any questions about this topic that we talked about tonight and you want to learn more, I'm happy to talk about that. But I do offer a free call. There's a link for that. I also have a link to a free my morning routine, my personal morning routine PDF, and that's available on my Instagram as well. So you can find me and really all of my things on there. I'll post the link in our Facebook to my masterclass, but I will be announcing it to everyone in the world in the next several days.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.
Bye, guys.
All right, so recording is off.
Cool.
Facebook people, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end that live stream. Thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you all later.